Hi, this is Ginger Cook, and fall's coming, and we've got a lot of fall paintings that I want to do for fall because it's such a pretty time of year. I'm going to do several, and this is going to be in conjunction with a creative art group, and we're talking about love fall art. That's our hashtag for this. I'm going to take this particular painting, which is a painting that I originally did about 16 by 20. I've done a smaller one for our video lessons online, and this is an 8 by 10 canvas. And I just want to show you how you might paint this, and then I'm going to show you maybe a couple of ways we might paint this, okay? But right now we're just going to go ahead and do this, make it a little bit larger. This is one of my favorite paintings, and it's going to be easy to do. I want to divide the background up in the underpainting into two sections, kind of like a V in here. Do you see this? Like a V. I want this background to be all sort of this light beige color, and then I would like this background to be a burnt umber. So basically what I want to do is take a piece of chalk, and if you measure this picture, I'll just kind of show you the measurements. This is an 8 inches, and I come down about 3.5 inches on here where I start that. So just a little bit above half, I'm just going to come down, say like this, and make a V. And now I'm going to paint this beige and this burnt umber. So the easiest way to do that, and you know, we're not going to put all the colors out for now because we have to dry this and everything. So I'm going to just take burnt umber. For me, it's an underpainting. All paintings need an underpainting. I'm not going to get very clever with this. We're just going to take burnt umber. And you know, I think that's what I did with this, was burnt umber, and I'm going to change my mind. Let's try something completely different. Instead of doing burnt umber, let's take cad red medium and do that underneath the burnt umber, and I want to show you why we might do that. So let's just do something completely different. I'm going to just put the paint right out on the canvas, and I'm going to put it on the plate. And let's take a brush. I have a large brush. I'll dampen the brush, wipe it off, and then just come along here and spread this red paint about like this. This will be fun. Let's have a good time with this. Let's just do something kind of bold and brave. I like it. There's an artist in Hawaii, and all her paintings start out with a red color, and then she does something else. And you know, that's really pretty. You know, let's do the whole. Should we do the whole thing red, and then do the beige on top of it? What would happen if we did that? Let's do that. Yes, let's do that. Should we do that? Nah. We're going to do it in two sections. This was supposed to be a two-section underpainting. It's okay. All right, that's all you have to do with this. Like that. Now, in order for us to happily do the beige and not have it turn pink, this red has to dry. So I'm going to pause the video. We're going to dry it, and then I'm going to show you how we're going to do the beige. Okay, so this is dry. Now we're going to go ahead and paint the top part of this, all right? We're going to paint the top part. So I'm going to take my palette knife, and it's going to be about 90% white and a tiny bit of yellow oxide, okay, and like 1%, 2% brown, burnt umber. I'm going to make this sort of, I guess I would say, a parchment beige color. Maybe add a little bit more yellow oxide to it, warm it up a bit, a little bit more white. Okay, and I'm just going to take it and scrape it on here like this, because I know you've, and then I'm just going to take a brush and smear that around. Alright, so that's, see, I'm sort of scraping and squishing with my palette knife. I don't even mind doing it like this with a little texture. Just sort of scrape it and squish it around here. Okay. Alright, come right up to the red. Just now, when you're doing a palette knife to do a background, you're doing it a little bit more textural than you would if you were doing it with a brush, but that's okay. I kind of like this effect, so I was just going to take a brush and do something else. But no, we're not. We're just going to, see, I'm sort of scraping it, moving over here. Come on, you've done this. You've buttered a piece of toast. You know how you scrape one part and put it somewhere else. This is, everybody knows how to do this. Just because someone told you it was a palette knife painting, you go, ooh, it's a palette knife painting. It's just not a big a deal. All right, so there's my beige color. Make sure I go out to the edges here. Alright, that's my beige, and then here's my red. Now, as long as I'm doing that, okay, we're just going to leave that alone and dry it. That's our big plan. I like it. Let's do that. Just do it in steps. So far, we've got like a flag or something. Alright, so our next step is to just take our palette knife again, which I put somewhere clever. I put that. Was here. Here, put it right here. I'm going to make a little more of this color. The same one I did before, maybe slightly lighter, a little bit more white in it. A little bit more yellow oxide. Could be yellow ochre. Some brands call this yellow ochre, by the way. I just want to make that clear. Alright, so here's a little bit more of this lighter color. Now I'm just going to take a brush now and easily, not going to wet the brush, I'm just going to come in here like this and go over this with an extra row of brush strokes. And you see it's a little bit lighter. And I want you to see the way I go up and then maybe down and then over here like that, and let some of this show through. The more layers you get on a painting, the prettier it will be. It will have a depth and no one will quite get it, because you want some of this darker background to show through. Alright, particularly in here in the center. And if you run out of paint, you know, get more paint. That's real critical. It's not a terrible idea to keep your sides a little bit darker than the center. You know, like for instance in here I might have a little bit lighter in here, a little bit of white paint on the brush here. Lighten it up here in this middle. It's still wet, so it's sort of blending. So alright, so I'm going to say that this is sort of how I want all this. Now I know I've got some trees. I want you to just see it. I've got sort of an advantage here. I've got some gold background leaves in the background. So this brush I can use. It's a little big for that, but I'll show you because it's still wet. I'm going to just take a little bit more gold and mix into this and just come up here like this with the side of the brush. I'm using just the corner, and I'm going to just add a few little dots in here while this is still wet and just tap in some of this gold color. Remember, it's mixed into these others, but it's definitely more of the gold. Come up here like this. And when you do wet on wet, it blends a little bit out of focus. This is what we're going for, this background color. I'm going to say here's a little bit of this yellow oxide, a little tiny bit of burnt umber with it. Here's some little darker gold over here like this. We're going to suggest that there's some tree leaves up here. I can get away with a big brush because I'm just using the corner. See that? Just using the corner of this. Okay, haven't put any orange or anything. This is a fall picture. Haven't done that. And then, like right up in here, I might just do some small ones, pure yellow oxide, just in a couple places, just some little tiny ones, a little bit brighter. Still wet, so they won't be, they're gonna at some point sort of mix with what I've got. These are smaller leaves, and this is important. You've got to vary the size of your stuff that you're doing, and if we have to come back up here later with some leaves, we can, but here's some just darker gold like this, like in here like this, and all on the sides like that. Okay, so now that's pretty good. We've got a nice background here with our leaves, and I want you to kind of see what we're doing. See, that's this background color. Everything kind of has to start somewhere, and this is where it's starting. Where do you start with it? So then I might add some Cad Red Medium, which I put somewhere clever. See, where did we just had that paint tube out. Ah, it's over there. Okay, so I want an orange color. Cad Red Medium is an orange red, and as long as we're in there, let's get out the yellows now. Let's put out Cad Yellow Medium. And burnt sienna. That's the next few colors that we're going to just add to our picture. And I think I'll put this larger brush away and just get out a smaller one. Now, I'm still in this still wet. I'm going to take a little bit of yellow and red and make this sort of orange color. Okay. Maybe I'll add just a drop of burnt sienna to it and brown it up a bit. I'm going to come in here with this small brush Now I'm adding some little orange leaves, and I'm going to come back over the red. Now this is the tricky part. I'm going to come back over the red. In other words, we don't want a big line here. We're going to have to paint over this a little bit. So we've got this orange, so we're going to kind of teeter back and forth here. Maybe take a little yellow oxide and go back over the red. Here's a little yellow oxide now, just down into here. So we're just, in other words, we're not trying to make a two-tone, stripe painting here. This is, we have to sort of erase the red line, and we're doing that by adding layers of kind of this lighter orange paint like that. See, all up in here like this. And the same thing here. You just kind of tap and go over it, and get in the habit of putting color on both sides of your brush. So you can kind of twist it and turn it, get these leaves going in different directions. Just tapping on here like this. I'm going to bring it down a little lower. Up here, maybe I want something kind of growing up here. Now, can we put some more later? Sure. But this is pretty good. We'll put a few of these little leaves kind of growing out this way. You don't have to be a total slave to my picture. There's leaves have fallen, and maybe, some of yours fell, or you had more and I had less. It's okay. Alright, so I've got that, and this is a pretty nice way to get this, and it's not that difficult. Now let's take a little bit of burnt sienna and add that to a little bit of yellow oxide, just like this. Do you see that? Okay, so now I've got another color. Just a few of these little darker browns. Okay, particularly down here in our where our V is. Now, a little bit of white, yellow oxide, a little bit of white, yellow oxide. Now look what happens. I'm going to just bring some of that down and cross over into here a little bit. So that actually what I've got is some red leaves showing up, which I didn't paint. You see, they're sort of buried under here. Do you see how I achieved those? Just like that. There's some red leaves that are happening right in there. Maybe up here we'll just put a couple. Just go right into the cad red medium on the brush. Just put a couple so that we pull some up someplace like that. I mean, if I'm doing a painting again, I won't be a slave to what I just painted. I'll see if I can't improve it. If every time you paint something, you should be able to improve it a little bit, if that makes sense. Okay. Now, interestingly, down here at the bottom of the picture, we've got these same colors. So doesn't it not make sense to you as long as we're doing it? So we're going to come up here. There's going to be my waterfall. Let me get a white piece of chalk. Here's going to be, I'm going to have a waterfall that's coming like this, and there's a little, kind of a little pond here. And then all underneath here, I've got some of these colored leaves. So here we go. Let's just go back in here like this. Now, when leaves are sitting on the dirt, they're level, which means they're east-west. They're horizontal. Here's a little, brighter yellow leaves down in here. I want some of these red ones to show. In this other picture, I made the background real dark, and I want you to just see the difference if we don't do that. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to say that all down in here around this, where this little puddle is, are these different colored leaves, and everything's going sideways. And they overlap. This is not freckles, okay? This is not polka dots. They overlap. Put some on top of the other, which is fine. Here's some burnt umber. I might even come in with some burnt umber and do some dark ones. But I'm leaving some of the red showing. Okay, and I'm doing that because I think that's a very subtle way to get the red to happen. Now, if they're coming down the cliff, if your leaves are coming down the cliff, then they're going this way. Does that make sense? Then they're coming, this is a little orange here. You see how we're doing that, okay? This says they're coming down. This we'll put a few back in here. Mostly we'll probably go back with some dark brown in there. But I thought it might be fun to show you. There's a lot of different ways to do underpaintings. It doesn't have to be done the same way. And the effect changes depending on what you're doing, okay? Definitely changes. Now I'm right into here. It's a cad yellow medium. Putting on some brighter leaves down in here. And I'll come back at the end of the painting and do some more of these. Here's a little burnt sienna, just tapping over. You don't want these leaves too big, but you can, if you get one too big, just take another color and tap over it. Leave a little bit of the red. Try to consider darkening up the corners. So a little burnt umber over this way. And I'm using burnt sienna, and I want another kind of bright orange color. Just red, medium and yellow makes a nice kind of pretty orange color, which we haven't added yet. So let's do that. And of course, if it's dry, it's going to look differently than if it isn't. But we're just going to come on in here, and anywhere we sort of skip a space, we've got this sort of red coming through, like that. So here we go. So there's our bottom of this. It looks different than this because we started off with red. There's people say, why do you do an underpainting? See what colors that you want to have, and then figure out how you want to do it, because it will look differently depending on what you put underneath, unless you're just covering it all up. Now all in here I want dark brown. Okay, so this whole area in here. So I'm just going to just pause the video, and we're going to just dry all this before we start with anything else. Okay, I'm going to dry all this. Alright, our next trick, we've dried this, is I've put out ultramarine blue and dioxazine purple. We're going to make a dark brown color. And so now I'm going to take a little bit of ultramarine blue and burnt umber, make a very dark brown color, and put just a drop of purple in it. Okay? And now I'm going to come along here like this, and over this red, I'm going to just be doing little brush strokes like this, as opposed to painting it solidly in. I want you to see how I'm doing that. So in other words, instead of just going up and down, all the brush strokes from now on this painting are going to be in small little directions, almost like, so if there's any red showing through, and I'll come in here like that, okay, come under here like this with the brown. Now some of that red is going to be peeking out from underneath this dark brown color. Now see, in this picture I didn't do it. You can see that in this picture that was not done. Alright, well, we're doing it in this picture. There's a lot of different ways to paint something, and you can get real clever with your backgrounds and try different underpainting colors and see what happens. You know, you may discover something I've never thought of, and it will look so fantastic, and you'll just have your own thing. So be prepared to develop your own thing. Now I know the waterfall is going to go here. This is a rock, so I'm just going to start bringing the brush strokes down vertically. Okay, a little ultramarine blue, brown. It's all down in here. I know that down in here I've got dark rocks showing. And it takes paint. Please notice that every few brush strokes I get more paint. Most people never use enough paint on the brush. So I'm just kind of tapping over some of those lighter pieces that I did. This is our cliff all up in here. And this, promise you, this painting will have a little bit of life, strictly because, a little bit more life I would say, because we put red underneath. Okay? Now yes, we're going to be layering other colors on top of this, but it affects the way the brown looks. That's what I would tell you. It sort of affects it. We can keep coming like this, all the way down in here. Now when I get down to here, I want to make sure that I've got this pretty level. There's a little piece of leaf I can keep, but you know, if I didn't keep it, it'd be alright too. Alright, there we go. We're going to come all the way down in here like this. Now as I bring this down, because I dried that yellow and all that stuff, and I'm out of burnt umber, this is what I'm talking about. When you run out of paint, it's very important to make sure that you have enough paint out on your palette to complete a painting. That's really key here. So we'll get this done in you know, like this. I'll get about 30 minutes of this going here. I'm right at about 20. We'll do about another 10 minutes of this and just let all this dry. my big plan. But I want to come in here like this, and I want to come in into the leaves down here like this. Remember, my brush strokes have changed direction now. I want to make sure that my corners are a little darker. I'm going to put some of these dark colors into my leaves. Down in here, make sure that I've got some dark. Like that. Down here on the bottom. And I'm going to get a little bit of burnt sienna too, and add a little layer of these little reddish brown colors as long as I'm going. Because again, this painting is going to be fantastic because of all the layers. That's what's going to really make it. So here's a little burnt sienna. Here's a little bit of burnt sienna and burnt umber on one side of the brush, burnt sienna on the other. I'll just paint the bottom of the canvas while I'm doing it. Okay, now where my water is, I'm going to put a little bit of ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. Say where my puddle is, which is level. Please make it level. Put a little bit more blue in it than I'd have brown. It's level here. This is where my waterfall is. Okay, and I want to come back up in here, some of this dark brown. And as I go, I can add more too. I want you to know that I'm not just limited to what we've done right here. But there's a sort of that, I want you to sort of see the difference. Here's this painting right here. This is what we're doing. And here's what we've got. But there's a little bit, kind of a feeling of a glow too, isn't it? Now I'm going to take a little bit of burnt sienna and put on some of these rocks right here on top. But kind of at an angle, they might be falling. A little bit of burnt sienna, not so much where the waterfall is, but certainly up here. And what would happen if I took a little bit of cad red medium and added it on top of this pure cad red medium and added it on top of the brown? It's a different color. It's not as bright as the stuff underneath. The stuff underneath was against white canvas, and it's brighter. But you can, again, don't be afraid to layer back and forth like that, because that can be very pretty too. We're doing a fall painting. And again, we can come back with some, we're going to have some greens and stuff. There's a little bit of the gold maybe coming down here somewhere on these rocks. And at this point, I think I just don't want to get much more stuff going. I think that's a good place. That's a good place. That's a good underpainting in the sense that when I mean by an underpainting, this is a good stopping place with this, because what's going to happen is when we put the waterfall in and when we start putting these trees in, it's going to look a little bit different. Okay, I want to wipe my brush off, and I think I will just take a moment. We're going to just, this is where we're going to stop right here. This is a good place to pause. If you're in the middle of painting this, just pause it now, let all this dry, and then we're going to come back and we're going to continue on with this picture. Okay? Good enough? All right. So we will pause. I think I'm just going to stop it right here. Yeah, this is a very good place to stop it, because you can kind of see we're putting all the underpainting in, and then we're going to come back over it. That's perfect. Okay, so we're back to part 2. This has had some time to dry. And we're going to go ahead and finish our picture. And just remember, when you're doing acrylics, unlike other mediums, you start with the farthest thing first and come forward, all right? So we've got our light background in here. We've got some of the red leaves and so forth. And if you'll look here, now we're going to start layering. And this is where chalk comes in very handy. And the reason you want a piece of chalk is it wipes off with a damp rag. So I'm going to come up here and say, I know I've got a little tree here. I'm just going to I'm not going to draw the whole tree out. I'm just going to sort of indicate where they go. And I know that right in here, I've got my waterfall coming down like this. Okay, so I'm going to say that that's where this is coming from, and up here a little bit, kind of tucked back into this little pond here. And then over here, I've got some sort of little crookedy tree. Maybe I'll do this in dark brown so you can see it where it goes against the darker stuff when I come up here like this. Okay, so this is this little tree, this is this little tree. Okay, and you want to close one off. The other day I was watching somebody paint, and they had a branch going off this way. You never want to have a branch going this way, because your eye will just take you right out of the picture. The center of interest is our waterfall here, okay? So you don't want, you'll notice that in this little example here, we've got this tree going this way, kind of, it's almost a triangular pattern. That's kind of what we're going for. All right, and I think I've got some small ones in here like this, coming up like this, maybe a few here, some little ones. I don't have to draw them in, but I'm just pretty much saying that this is where I've got some trees. Now, rather than draw the whole thing in, it's easier for me to just know where the trees are going to go, and then knowing that they're a little wider at the bottom, taper as they get up to the top. Sometimes just a few dots is all you need. And at this point, I'm going to take a brush that's a liner brush. This is, I like to put tapes on, a little piece of tape on the brushes I like, and I'm going to wet it and just pull it to a point. You just pull it in your paper towel, in your bag, and just twist it. You can see what I'm doing. Kind of spin it and pull it out so it's to a point. Now here's the deal. If it doesn't go to a point anymore, the brush is worn out. So it's pretty pointless. No pun intended. Haha. So, all right. So now let's just take a little bit of burnt umber. Put a little water on the tip of my brush, just on the tip, and I'm going to say, let's just put some of these tiny little trees in here. Let's see, this is going to be here like this. The harder you push, the fatter the line. Remember that? I'm just starting here at the top, and I'm saying I've got some little tiny ones here. Since I have paint on it, I'm kind of starting in the middle of the tree so that I don't get a big blob where I don't want it. And as I come down here, you don't have to go right over your chalk either. You can go right next to it. Sometimes painting over chalk is a little like painting over sand. There's a drag, so if you go right next to it, when this dries, the chalk will wipe off. Okay, here we go, and I'm going to push a little harder. And I reload for each tree, reload paint for each tree. Now, as I come down here, I want this tree trunk to be thicker. And catch a little bit of water on the tip, and I'm going to come up here like this. So let's see, I've got quite a bit of a little glob of paint on here, but that's all right. I'll just twist this over like this. Now make sure you have a good taper. Don't just get it real fat at the bottom and then this little skinny line coming out of it like a thread. Make sure that you have some sort of reasonable taper, and if you have to make a tree a little bit fatter than mine to make that work, then do that. That's okay. Okay, so here's this one. Starting to come alive now. How about over here? For sure, I'm going to come down here. This is a little bigger tree. I'm going to push a little harder. Now, could you use one of the little angle brushes to do this? Absolutely. I like angle brushes. And you sure could use a little angle brush to do this. Let's see what we've got here. Let's see, a little bit of an angle brush here. This is just a little tiny pointy brush. Okay, I'm going to come down here and say this is a little bigger tree here. Maybe it's going to join this way. Closer in here. It's not how I had it in this picture, but that's okay. You're not a slave to exactly. This is a tree, man. You can improvise. Start doing some wiring on your branches. You know, maybe there's some little tiny ones back here. Don't go all the way up. Maybe some do. And they kind of disappear in the background. Kind of, there we go. Just put a few. See, it's almost just very light, like a little bit of water on my brush with a little brown paint. It's lighter. Do you see that? It's almost tan. You could use raw umber for this too. This is burnt umber, but you could use raw umber if you were thinking about it. But see how I'm putting these trees in? I think we need some sort of light tree over here. And here's the trick. You could start with a you know, a tree, and then skip a space, and then skip a space, and come on down. If you put some leaves in the background, that's okay too. You can do that. But basically, what we're saying is that we've got some nice trees. I think I would like a branch coming. This is a little bit of more of a crookedy tree. I would just say that it forks off here, and maybe I'm going to have one little fork off here like this, and then split this one down here like that. Okay, so there, like that. Okay, you see they're a little bit different than what I did the first time. And when you're looking at a photograph, for heaven's sakes, just because there's a tree in the photograph, do not put it in. You have some choices here. You've got to be like your own Reader's Digest editor. Okay, you're gonna have to do that for yourself. Just, you know, where does it start getting so busy it takes away? Now I think we had something coming up like this. Let me take a little bit of burnt umber. I've got a little tree coming up like this. A little bit of a thicker one, and just kind of a partial tree. And it's coming up this way, like an old stump or something, like this. Coming up this way. Alright, something like that. There we go, I like that. So far so good. Now, we could take a minute and dry things. Well, let's see what we did if we didn't dry it. So I'm going to take a little bit of white and yellow oxide. A little bit of white on my brush, a little bit of yellow oxide, right like that. Okay, a little bit of white right over this little brown puddle. And I'm saying that the light's kind of coming from the left. So I'm going to lighten up this side of the tree. Now, I have to be kind of careful. I think I'll put a little more white with that because I don't want to give the you know, the back, that's so close to the background color, I have to be kind of careful. Alright, so let's say that there's some light there, and maybe over here on some of these, particularly down here when we come into the dark. Wherever there's a dark, there's a light. And what does that mean? That means that if you can't see it because two dark colors are going into the same place, then you need to address it. Okay, so I think what I'll do now is just get a little bit of burnt umber again and kind of widen up some of these trees here. I need this to be a little bit fatter, this tree. You can always fatten them up. Okay, so if you have been taking regular online lessons from me, I show you in some of my videos on GingerCooklive.gallery how to erase, which is really helpful if you get a line that's too big. We've got something called warming up your brushes on my website, GingerCooklive.gallery. And what that does is it shows you the different things you can do with the brush. Because one of the hardest things people have, and I know that to be true, is to paint skinny lines. So I'm going to take a little dioxazine purple now, and I'm going to darken up some of this right over this this side of this tree trunk. The ones that I want to have come forward, I'll make a little darker, like this one on this side, kind of shaded on this side, so I've got the burnt umber kind of in the middle. And I'm going to just shade up the dark, a little bit of dioxazine purple on here. Same with this one. Okay, I'm going to bring that down all the way up to here. Just barely touch it. Get in the habit of rolling your brush around, and so that you don't have a glob of paint on it, you just have it on the tip. The harder you push, the fatter the brush. And if you can spend some time every day, that little video I put out on how to warm up your brushes is fantastic. And I would encourage you to consider a membership at GingerCooklive.gallery. I have over 40 art lessons on all kinds of different subjects. There's some stuff on YouTube you can see what I'm talking about. And plus you get help from me. You can just mail me a picture, a photograph of what you've done, and I'll make some suggestions. And which I think is, you know, sometimes I'll tell you, you know, this is good, but you might consider, you know, erasing a line or adding a highlight or something like that. It might be helpful. I find that we get some really good results from that. And I feel when you talk about the internet and what's out there for, you know, for art lessons, wonderful artists teaching, but I have to say that at $25 a month, $24.95 a month, and I give a military discount and a senior discount if you're over 60 at $19.95 a month, that for the value you consider over 40 videos, and then I have I add new ones every week. So and we occasionally retire a few, but we give you warning when we're going to retire one. Okay, so here's some little lines like that. Alright, so here we go. So that's kind of nice. I like this. I don't want to do any of this yet because that's in front. We got to put some green back now. So we're going to take a second, pause, and dry. Okay, so I took about 2 minutes and dried this. And now I'm still in this little small brush. Let's just put this down for a minute. I found some new brushes the other day. I have always been a big fan of ruby satin silver brushes, and this is like a number 2, long handle number 2, and people always say, what number brush do you use? Well, gosh, it depends if it's a short or a long handle. They change sizes from brush company to brush company, so a number doesn't help. I always like to use my fingernail. That's about a little smaller than my fingernail. Do you see that? But it's squared off. But maybe one of these is like this one is the size of my thumbnail. Does that help? I think for me that's more helpful. You know, I guess you could use a ruler too, and say like this one is ½ inch, and this one would be ½ inch. Okay, so yeah, we could get technical if you want to. Fine. But I found this Jerry's Artorama just started collecting or selling these brushes from England, and they're made by Roller Downey, and these are called Simply Simmons, and I brought some, and I really like them. I may lose the friendship with the fan adoration of the ruby satins because they do wear out. So look at this nice little package of brushes here, and a nice little set, and these are really reasonable. All their brushes are really reasonable. Some of the best prices and the value, and they guarantee them for life. Did you know that? I looked up on the internet and said guaranteed, like how, but apparently they do. So look, see, I've got this one at an angle, and I've got these small ones, and we're doing a small picture. So, and they're nice and stiff. You know, an acrylic brush needs to be stiff. So I'm going to just take one of these, and let's see, I think I want an angle one. If you don't have an angle brush, just go ahead and use your little liner brush. And then if you buy a new brush, remember they've got sizing in them, some sort of sizing in them, keep them stiff. So make sure that you're you rinse them. Alright, so I'm going to, when you're using an angle brush, again, this is sort of in my little videos, I'm warming up a brush. Make sure that you're using it on the knife edge, like that. Here's a little white paint. I'm just making some little lines like this, kind of following my the outline that I've just gotten with the chalk. Now remember, okay, this is real important. Water water falls straight down. So did you see in this, I may have got a curve going here. Do you see this? Even in this one. But now it's going straight down. It's not heading off in this direction. This is real important. I can't express this enough. This is real important. So now this line has to come, if it's coming down, say our water is coming straight down like this. Maybe I'll skip a space. I'm kind of ignoring my chalk now. I'm saying it's coming down into the water like this. So this isn't a real big stream. This was an actual place in France that my daughter and I visited. Cinnamon, she's the art Sherpa over there on Heart Party. And this is an actual photograph that we took, and this was up inside the road. Now I'm going to come this way because now, why? Because it's water, it's level, so we're going to change the direction. I want to make sure I leave a dark outline in the puddle, kind of around it, but not too even. How's that? You don't want it to look like a mirror on its side. Okay, now let's just take a little bit like this. I'm going to use the flat of the brush and then spin it like that. So the flat and then spin it. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to say that that's the water. Then I will go ahead and glaze over some of this, but I wanted to make sure that I had that in before we did anything else. Alright, so let's just, I don't have to pause the video for this. Let's just try it real quick. Now, when you're doing anything like water, you don't want to leave it white like that. And the easiest thing to do is to rinse your brush and do a little glaze. And glazing is where you make like a tea stain or coffee. It's got to be like, probably maybe closer to coffee. So I'm going to take a little ultramarine blue and water. See, just right like this. Little ultramarine blue and water. Make sure you wipe your brush off because you don't want paint. Okay? Then I'm going to come down over some of this like this and shade this water a little bit. Just like that. And maybe down here on the bottom, do a little shading. And if you get too much, you can just wipe your brush off and mop some up. Okay, so just saying that the bottom side of this, just like this is the shadow side, here we go. So there's a little bit of shadow in the water. And let's see, let's rinse the brush. And then maybe I'll put a little bit of white over that in a couple places. Just have the shadow underneath now. A little bit of white on top of a little bit of it. I haven't dried it, so it's like a lighter blue now. Does that make sense? Okay, and then maybe we'll just do a little bit of white right in here like this where it's spattering. A few little dots. Using the corner, see I'm using the tiny corner of this brush, little dots like this. Saying that this is spattering up here like this. I'm not trying to get too technical on you. Alright, so we're saying that there's our water kind of rushing into here. Make sure it's, you know, there we go. And you know, you could you have the stream running off the canvas? You could. I didn't. This was sort of a. We're just going to keep it simple for now, but you could run your stream either this way or that way if you want it. All right. So now we've got that. Now we're going to just change directions here, and we need to put some green on. And what I found in France was they had all these green vines. They weren't part of the trees. They were green vines that were growing up the trees. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our palette knife. We're going to make a green. Now let's start off with ultramarine blue and a little bit of cad yellow medium and make a dark green. Okay, ultramarine blue, cad yellow medium, and I think I'll add just a tiny bit of the phalo. Ultramarine yellow, just mostly 75% blue with a little bit of this yellow color, and you could add like 1% or 2% cad red medium if you wanted a little bit darker. Okay, so there's my dark Christmas tree green. I'm just going to scrape it up on my palette knife like this, and I'm going to use just the corner of this brush. Make sure I don't have any water dripping on it. It's clean. Just the corner of this, and use my palette knife, and I'll come up here like this, and I'm going to dot on, kind of like little vines, dotting it on, wrapping it around this tree. And then we start with the dark color first. Okay, so some of this we're going to just cover up, this tree trunk, but you got to have it there. It's like your skeleton. Okay, and then over in here I've got quite a few, and I'm just taking that corner of the brush and dotting it. Just touching and lifting up like a little dot, and I'm doing it so fast that maybe it's hard to see what I'm doing. Let me zoom in. How's that? Let me just zoom in, and I'll move the picture down like that so that you can see where I've got this right at the corner here. And individual dots of color, but fast, okay? Doot, 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 dot, 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 like a little woodpecker, dot, dot, dot. Little vines coming through here. Some of them are, you know, some of them you go over, so that's one little glob of paint, but they were all done with dots. Now, here's the thing. You guys that like the texture, you could have been adding modeling paste or gel to this, and made some. If you're doing a big, it might be pretty to add. I think I did on a larger painting. Add a little texture to this so that it about 50% gel or something, and then all these little this little part of the tree would stand out in relief and be very pretty. Now we want to come down over here so the red's behind. All right, so we're coming down here on our tree. Now as I get up over here, I've got some smaller ones. Change the size. And how do you change the size of a dot? How hard you push. If you push harder, you get a bigger dot, obviously, than if you barely touch it. So practice a little bit, and then start tapping. Don't obsess too much about where you're going to put them, but get sort of a pattern going. Learning to see a pattern is one of the blessings of being an artist, is that you have pattern recognition a lot of people don't have, and the more you do it, the more it becomes clear. People that do puzzles see patterns easily, and believe it or not, you know who makes a good artist are accountants. Accountants make marvelous artists because the math is all pattern, and they have not to say that every artist is good at math, but I'm saying a lot of accountants make good artists. How's that? Just like surfers make good skiers and snowboarders. All right, it's because there's it crosses over. All right, so I'm going to come over here on top of my browns and kind of surrounding my waterfall now. I'm going to come down here. I'm keeping it lower. You can kind of see where I am. I'm lowering it up here. Now, as I come down into this part of the waterfall, I'm going actually over the the dirt here, the dark brown. And this is it's hard to see because they're almost the same value, but they're not quite the same. Then let's move over here a little bit and make sure that we've got some of these. This is about as much as we're going to get on this little bit of picture. Let's see, to move some off of here. I'm just kind of looking. Now we need a lighter color. Okay, so we've said that's what we've done there. Now let's take some yellow and white and move over here like this. We put the brush down. Let's take some cad yellow medium and some white. Okay, and move over here and a little tiny bit of phthalo blue. Kind of brighten this up a bit. Kind of brighten this up just a hair, and maybe a little bit of yellow oxide. There we go. I don't want too bright. Okay. Now there's my light green color. I'm going to scoop that up. Okay. And I'm going to move right back here. Remember, the light's coming where from the right. So now I'm going to just tap on next to this some light. Haven't rinsed my brush, so I'm sort of mixing colors as I go. Okay. So that there's this light, these light leaves, kind of creeping up, and I'm kind of either making some light leaves all by themselves, or if I'm going near the dark ones I did, I'm trying to say if they were a clock, I'm trying to say between 3 o'clock and 12 o'clock on the circles, or at least on the right hand side of them, on these little dots. But I might come in front of the tree like that. See how I'm coming in front? This is all layered. Okay, like this. Barely touch it. Just let the paint drop on here like that. Okay, a lot of little lights around here like that. See? Make sure I'm using the pointy end of the brush. Putting in the light leaves. Oh, all over in here like this, next to this waterfall. Little tiny ones. Vary the size of your dots. This takes a little thought, but make some bigger and some smaller. Your leaves. Come up over here. Same thing on this side. Do a little bit of dots. Then what I want you to do, just think about it. Maybe there's a few up in here, some of these light ones that kind of got away from everything. You can add a few. You don't want it too busy, but you can get some light ones up in here too. And I see where I'm kind of missing some in this area. May have to come back with some dark. I kind of missed some dark green ones in here. So I'll come back with some dark ones. See all that, right? Come back down in here with some dark ones. Move this back down. Now I'll come back with some light ones on top of that. Okay. Then stop every once in a while. Just stop and look at it. Let's just zoom back out, see how we did. See? Now we're getting it. See how it's looking? Can you see the picture? See how? And maybe I want it a little bit darker off of here, just on this edge. Sometimes it's nice to have the corners a little darker, the sides. Maybe over in here I want a little bit darker. Come down in here. So I know where some dark paint is. I can bring some more back into here. And here's some light ones up here. We will add some more, but this is a good starting place, because the reason being is that we want to be able to dry this. We want to make sure that we're crossing over this other tree here with some little vines. I was fascinated by these little vines that grew up the trees. Okay, like that. So there's a crossing over. Now, before I do much of anything else, I need to put these trees right here before I do more of the green. All right. But we're getting there, you see, and all this stuff is in the back. But I feel like we need something in here a little bit. I want to just pull a little bit in this way. Something a little bit more in the middle. Get some dark on the left side of this. Down into here. Say that wants some dark color. Dark green. There we go, down into here, like this. Okay, better. Okay, and put a little of this light stuff down in here. How about a little bit of light stuff right up in here, kind of crossing that over. Okay, See where we're getting that? It's really pretty. I just really kind of like this a lot. I think I could pull some. I mean, I know we can, when we do this other leaf, we can do it, but I think I want a few little light ones next to this waterfall anyway, over here like this. Then we'll dry it. Now, don't be afraid to just put a few leaves this way on your, remember, now they're going horizontal. Put a few leaves kind of down in here. You can float even a couple on top of your, down in here. Just put a few, maybe some dark ones. Okay, just a few down here, mixed in with these. Mixed in with these. You're gonna bring your color back down. Okay, I want some real dark leaves down in here next to the waterfall, like that. Just using that brown, and I'm going to pull a little bit up this way. Now, there's a branch here, but we'll still go ahead and put it, okay? And there's some branches in here, but I want to put the branch first. All right, so let's put all this away and just take a minute, pause, and dry. Then we'll put these other branches in, and then we'll finish the painting. Okay, so now we've determined that this is where our next branches are going to go. I'm going to come here a little bit above our water here, and I'm going to say I've got a tree coming up this way, and I've got another one crossing over here like this. Do I need to do brown? Yeah, maybe here I'll do just a little brown so you can see it. And then maybe it's forking this way. Okay. Got another kind of a nice little tree. It's a little wider here. I'll just show you. It's a little wider here. And then this one forks off across our waterfall like this, and forks over this way like that, and has a little bit of a branch coming crookedy down like this. Okay, and then I've got another one down here in the corner. It's coming up from this corner that's kind of crookedy going this way. Okay, so those are the branches that we need to add now. All right, so if that makes sense, those are the ones we need to add now. So let's pick up our chalk. And let's see, what are we going to grab? Okay, so we're going to take probably this. Let's take that angle brush that we were using and take the green off. And I'm going to show you how you can put a tree in with an angle brush. Might as well. We just put this out of the way here. So here's, I know I'm going to take a little bit of burnt sienna, a little raw umber, and sort of change the color of this a little bit. And I'm going to just start right here using the angle like this. Let's just do burnt sienna, because I want it a little bit lighter so you can see it. If we use burnt umber, it would be very hard to see over this dark brown background. Okay, so I'm going to say here too. Here's a little bit of burnt sienna coming up this way. Now, start with you using an angle brush. Start with the point away from you. If you're coming down, harder you push, the fatter the line. But some people can do a much better and thinner line with one of these little angle brushes than they can with a regular brush. I'm going to just grab this tree and integrate it into here and say that that's part of this one now. And maybe it's coming up here like this with a little branch, and then we've got one coming across here like this. And remember, branches go thinner as they taper out toward the edge, and they get a little bit of a shoulder here. And let's see, I had one coming across this waterfall and then up kind of like this, maybe to here, and then this one's coming up. Okay, like that. Now, when you're doing a small one, it might, now look, you've missed your paint a little bit. Make sure that it's flat on the brush. And I'm just going to come here like this with just I'm using just the very corner of this brush, just a little bit of the corner to get that effect. Now, while it's still wet, I'm going to put a little white on my brush, and I want the top of this to be lighter. So while it's still wet, so we can blend it in, Here's the outside edge. This tree is almost a white. I'm almost going over it now, using that dark line as my shadow line as opposed to the tree. It's going to go over that a little bit, so I want this to be, so wipe this brush off. Here's my, I want this to be a little bit lighter here, like this. This is where you're mixing on the canvas when you don't dry. Okay, so you've got to take that into consideration. Here, let's mist the white. Need a little flow here. I don't want dragging. A little bit of a flow going. There we go, like that. See that that's this little branch is coming up like this. Here's right over the waterfall, still leaving the dark shadow. Okay, same here like this. I'm going to switch brushes now and just do the liner and show you the difference. Here's the liner brush. Pull it to a point. Again, this is preference. Some people have much more control with a little liner brush. And on a big picture, sometimes that other brush is kind of handy. I'm going to lighten up this side of it with a little gold, I think, on this one. That log here. Maybe I'll put a little gold on here too. A little bit of gold doesn't hurt. The gold kind of shows up as long as it's not, you can't have gold next to that yellow oxide or ochre color, you know, when you get up into here, but you know, when you're getting into the dark areas, you sure can. So let's get a little bit of a light branch coming off of here like this, just using the tip like that. You'll see that there's a little branch coming up here like that. Okay, and let's take a little, I'm going to take a little burnt umber now and a little bit of dioxazine purple and add some bark to this one. A couple of places. In other words, I don't want a two-tone stripy tree here. Okay, so I'm going to just make sure that I've got some dark areas. Let's see, what about this one up here? We didn't do anything with this, did we? So let's take our white. Haven't rinsed any brushes. I'm just going back into the white paint. And here's this tree up here like this, where we're saying this is crossing over. This is closer to us. This is closer to us. Let's bring it down. You can see it. Okay. These are. Alright, so I'm saying that's coming down here like this. Let me just. So I'm looking at that going, it needs to be crossing over here like this. Maybe all the way off the canvas. All the way off. Okay, like that. So that's kind of coming off. And, alright, so where this is coming off, and this tree is, I don't like this juncture here. Okay? This is confusing to me and it doesn't work. So I'm going to move it. Well, how are you going to move it? I'm moving it. I'm moving this one over here like this. And then I'm going to take some yellow oxide and white, and I'm going to paint this one out here and move this tree trunk as, you know, one or the other, something else. See? Just, that's as simple as that. That's as fast as you can move something. Don't like something? I love it. Just move it. Alright, so that's a little better. Okay, so then here, let's just get some light going on here. Sure we have the light part up here on the tree trunk. And then what about this down here? So we've got a burnt umber and dioxazine purple. We're going to come up in here like this and make this tree trunk, this old kind of gnarly tree, coming this way. Now when it gets into, when it starts to get into the other dark area, then I'm going to switch to light paint on my brush and just paint in the branches, which will start to look a little bit light, like a little bit of light purple. A little bit of white paint on it. Make sure you've got them kind of wiggly and skinny. You want to be able to differentiate this branch from, say, the waterfall. Here we go. So there's the light part of this little old tree. right like this. Remember, the light's on the right hand side. Back to the paint. Back to the paint. If I put any kind of brush stroke down and nothing happens, I am getting paint in a hurry. And every once in a while I'll put my brush to a point so that I have these tiny delicate lines. And if you're not getting a delicate line, of course, how do you skinny up a line? Well, you can take some dark right next to it. Look at that. Look how fast I can skinny up that line just by putting a little dark right there. Alright, so what about this right here? That's some chalk there that's annoying me. Just gonna skinny up this line just by putting a little dark next to it. Get rid of that chalk. Okay, so there's my little funky branch right here. Here's this little funky branch. It doesn't read well because I've got this chalk that I kind of drew it on here with, and it's looking funny. So I'm going to take some dark paint and just sort of skinny up my lines here. Okay, better. And then let's see, a little bit of white paint. Say I've got a little bit of a branch coming over here like this. There we go. Alright, it's coming off of here like this. Lighten this up. Lighten that up. Okay. Wherever there's a light, there's a dark. Here's some lighter colors right here. Alright, so I've got the tree down here at the bottom. This is coming up. Now, I think this can't stop right here. This has got to come up a little higher. Maybe into here you'd skip a space, the little white, and just imply a little more tree branch coming up. Trust me, we're going to cover this up with some greenery. But, you know, right for now, I'm going to just say here's the little wiggly branches. Alright, now we're going to pause and dry and come back with the greenery and kind of wrap this up. Okay, so I want you to see the difference now. Take a minute and look at this. You'll notice that we did a red underpainting under here, and if you compare the two paintings, even though we're not finished, look how this painting has sort of a glow to it that you wouldn't get normally from that red underpainting. It's pretty, isn't it? And I'm going to suggest, even the sky looks a little bit warmer. I'm going to suggest you try that just for the fun of it. Let's continue on with our greenery now, but I wanted you to just point that out. You know, a lot of times in my regular weekly lessons, we talk about underpainting colors and what color to use, and you know, when you do a color, and these make a big difference. What you put underneath makes a big difference. If you'll notice, I'm going back to making my dark green again, but I'm going to add some phthalo blue to this now. I'm going to add a little more yellow and phthalo blue to my dark green, kind of brighten it up a bit because it's in the front. It's still dark. It's like a Loden green. That would be the color. And I'm going to still dark, and I'm going to just sort of tap over. Be prepared to tap over your the little branch that you did, and anywhere you had a little trouble, you know, with your branch, it wasn't so perfect, you know, put a little leaf. That's all right. I'm going to do the same thing over here. We're in the Loden green, and even though it's almost as dark as the burnt umber over there, value-wise, what we mean by value is if you get out that grayscale and we were to do this a black and white picture, it's almost if they're too close together. But the reason we're doing it is because we're going to be adding wet on wet with the greenery, and we're going to be mixing colors as we go on the greenery. And I want to be careful I don't lose some of that great red I've got going here. I like some of these red highlights, so I'm kind of watching where I put those. That's the underpainting showing through. Okay, coming across here like that. Now, if you'll recall, we had some of this green that we made up, and we're back in here to the little bright greens now on our tree. Alright, here it is. Remember, on the right side of the tree we've got these little dots. Now they can be slightly bigger because they're closer. They're a little bit closer. And let's see, the same thing here. We're going to just say that these are crossing over kind of winding their way up into here a little bit. On this side, right side, kind of see what I'm doing. I'm kind of, then maybe over here on this, there's quite a bit of greenery here, and I'm going to wipe off my brush so that I make sure I have my, just my corner. Just want to use the corner where I'm putting these dots. And I'm right up in here, I've got this is pretty full. Okay. Leaving kind of this branch underneath here like this. Maybe crossing in front of this one. Okay, all up here on the top of this, I'm going to say that there's some light greenery under here. Now I'm going to take a little phthalo blue and right on, let's see, right on my palette knife, I'm going to mix another color. Just see right there on the palette knife. I want a little more blue-green. I'm going to add that in the front. A little more blue-green, phthalo blue-green. It's a little brighter green. Do you see that? It's in the front. A little bit brighter. You don't want it all back there, but in the front, I'm going to bring your eye forward. So here's a little bit brighter green. And it's still a shadow color, so it's got to be kind of underneath that light green we had, but I realized that we needed to bring some of that forward. And it's very pretty next to orange because it's like a turquoisey color, so it really pops the red when you do that, like up in here, maybe even crossing in front of this tree next to that red. This is deliberate thinking about where this color is going now. Then down into here where I've got some of these cute little red spaces I've left from the underpainting. Put some of this blue-green color. I don't want any of it sitting on my pond here, maybe. Just a couple like that, something sitting on the water. And I think I will probably bring that right off the canvas. Now I'll put a little ultramarine blue with that. Now look, I'm just mixing greens here. Somebody wrote me the other day, my good friend Renee wrote me. I really love Renee. She came to one of my workshops and we really enjoyed meeting each other, and she's a lovely person. And she said, not that I'll buy it. I got this email. Yeah, not that I'm going to break your golden rule and buy green, but if you were going to buy green, what would you buy? Okay? But do you see why I'm not buying it for the most part? Because I'm mixing it as I go. I know that there are a lot of artists, they'll pick, like for a tree, they'll pick 3 greens for the leaves and that's it. Okay, so I'm going to put a little darker blue up in here. Put a little ultramarine blue and put that over here like that. That's pretty next to some of this. Down off of here like that. See how we're just popping this picture? And maybe even off of here in a few places. Tiny little bushes. Some of this dark blue, I'm keeping it all kind of down in this area. It's a shadow color. Okay. Kind of a little shadow color down in here. Underneath this branch. Cross it over here again. Okay. Like that. Now that's pretty nice. Now the last thing we're going to do, even though we used all this color up, so the answer to, I told Renee to just give me it. I'll go to the art store and I'll get a bunch of green tubes and tell you which ones I like. But really, when you get in the habit of making these greens, occasionally I have a phthalo green I like for oceans. And you can make Southern Ocean Blue, which is a color by Matisse, with phthalo green and phthalo green and phthalo blue and a little white. You can get Southern Ocean Blue, but basically that's my thing. Now let's see, do I want any of these darker blue leaves down in here like this, maybe toward the bottom where they fell? Something across here like that. See, we're getting almost done. We're almost done. Isn't that pretty? Yeah, I think this is pretty. And I love this little bit of red right here. Okay, so now I'm going to put this brush in water. We're going to go back to the little pointy brush. Okay. Now, let's get some white and yellow. White and yellow. And let's put some lighter leaves here. Alright, you ready for this? Light's coming from the top. Now, we're going to do some deliberate highlights of white like that. See, deliberate highlights of white, and it's like a light yellow. Now this is wet, so it's going to turn it a little bit green, kind of by my waterfall. We're turning on the lights. We're saying that this is very pretty. The lights all coming through the trees. So now I'm into this kind of pale. You could use cadmium yellow light or even Naples yellow for this too. But I want some light leaves kind of creeping up the side of these trees like this. And over here, let's say by the waterfall, because that's where our, just a few dots of this. And then maybe some yellow going up this tree, kind of wrapping it around itself. A few little light dots going up the tree, just a few. Just start playing with the eye a little bit. You can get too much of this stuff. And what about down in here? Do we want any down in here? Maybe closer to the stream. A little bit. Now let's take a little bit of yellow oxide. Come in here. We want any yellow oxide coming up any of these trees too. You've got, remember, we can go in front of these trees now, some of the ones that we put, and add a few little bits of yellow oxide and push some of these trees back like that. Okay, because remember we had it on the other side. Okay, like that. There we go. Alright, so maybe I'll put just something right there. Alright, so I think that's really pretty. I think that's pretty great with our picture. I really like that a lot. And then what would be the, you know, if I wanted to be the last of the big spenders here, got a little cad red medium in yellow. Now, let's put a few bright spots of color back, just in a few places. Just tip of the brush, very small. This is color surprise, where you're doing that. A few little bits of red, maybe a little bit of red down in here. Now, if I add a little bit of purple in cad red medium, I get this sort of a darker red. And so if you need some darker ones for leaves, you know how there's, you know how fall leaves, there's all these different colors. But we're keeping all the bright stuff into here. And that's our picture. I would say you can fool around with it a little more. I want you to see the difference between this one, which is pretty, and this one. I really like that we did the red underpainting. I really like that very much. I think I want to put a few little gold leaves right here next to our water where it's coming along the edge here. Some of these leaves are floating like that. And let's make a little bit of an effort to have a couple leaves like this in front of this waterfall that way. Push it in the background a little bit like that. That pushes that in the background. And where did that light yellow stuff go? Ooh, maybe. I'm just looking. I can look at this in the monitor and kind of see, well, on the computer, kind of see where I might want a few little light highlights to make the waterfall more pronounced by just adding some lighter leaves up in here like this. Okay? Alright, so this is our, I think a pretty nifty picture. And I'm going to invite you to like this video as part of our collaborative artist group here. And if you haven't been looking at the other artists that are in here, you'll notice my cards. I'm going to feature some of the other artists that are highlighting our collaborative art this time. This is hashtag love fall art, hashtag love fall art. And I think that if you type that in, you're going to see a lot of others paintings that or craft projects, probably 300 that you just didn't know about. Check us out, like our videos, subscribe. We appreciate it. Share it. Gosh, share these videos. This is wonderful. When you get a nice one like this up there, consider going to my website. Here's GingerCooklive.gallery. These lessons are just such a value. 24/7 access to them. Over 40 videos. All kinds of great things you can do. And I appreciate the fact that you took the time to watch this with me. And if you're watching this in our regular lesson library, thank you for being a member. Feel free to share your paintings with me. If you have any questions, just send them in, and I'm happy to look at them. and you know, make suggestions. I mean, even now when I see something here, I could go back and play with this a little bit and say, here's our bigger, you know, here's a little light here on the branch. Remember, acrylics dry darker, so just leave this sit for a day and go back and look and see if you still are happy with your colors. So that's our picture. I'm going to move this out of the way. It's fall in France, you know, and this was near Labastide. And I hope you enjoyed the painting. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful day. Move my little Mr. bottle out of the way. Tra-la, there it is. Ha!